that war began 18 months ago. We move on to global tariffs now, and Asian shares have surged today on hopes that the ongoing tariff war between the US and China may de-escalate. Investors were reassured after President Donald Trump stated that he has no intention of firing Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Trump also confirmed that China tariffs would drop substantially, but not to zero. Here is what the president had to say.
That's true. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It's not going to be that high. It got up to there. We were talking about fentanyl, where, you know, various elements built it up to 145. No, it won't be anywhere near that high.
What level do you think it'll come down to if you haven't?
It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. It used to be zero. We were just destroyed China.
Well, Chinese President Xi Jinping criticised tariffs, saying they hurt multilateral trade and the global economic order. Here is what China's Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiakun has said.
我发动的关税战，中方的态度很明确，我们不愿打，也不怕打，打奉陪到底，谈大门敞开。如果美方真的想通过对话谈判解决问题，就应该停止威胁讹诈，在平等、尊重、互惠的基础上同中方对话。一边说要同中方达成协议，一边不断搞极限施压，这不是同中方打交道的正确方式。
Meanwhile, the US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressed optimism, predicting a de-escalation of the tariff standoff soon. The White House reported that talks on a potential China trade deal are progressing well as markets responded positively. Asian stocks, including Japan's Nikkei 225 and Australia's S&P ASX 200, posted significant gains. The uncertainty over tariffs continues to impact financial markets, but the outlook appears more hopeful as negotiations unfold. Let's listen in to Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary.
On that, I asked the president about this before coming out here, and he wanted me to share with all of you that we're doing very well in respect to a potential trade deal with China. As I mentioned, there have now been 18 proposals in more than 100 countries around the world who are wanting to make a deal with the United States of America, and the president and the administration are setting the stage for a deal with China. So we feel everyone involved wants to see a trade deal happen, and the ball is moving in the right direction.
Well, joining us to discuss all of these latest developments is Thomas Porteous, correspondent and anchor with NewsX. Well, Thomas, thank you very much for joining us. Some major developments in a story that we've been covering for weeks. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel for these US-China trade standoffs?
Well, yes, Joshua, obviously today's Trump statement signifies a possible de-escalation in a trade war between the two world's largest economies. Ever since April the 2nd, which was Trump's so-called Liberation Day, where he announced reciprocal tariffs on the world's economy and all different countries, has seen a tit-for-tat kind of style play in regards to heightening tariffs on both imports coming in to the US from China and imports coming in from the United States to Beijing. Obviously today it shows that with the Donald Trump administration, a deal is never off the table. Beijing had a 145% tariff on it, a substantial amount for goods coming into the US. Donald Trump has said that unrealistically this is too high, and he has said there is a willingness to be quote unquote very nice during negotiations with Beijing. Another factor is Donald Trump's close economic advisor, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, has described the ongoing tariff conflict with China as unsustainable. This follows obviously aggression from both sides, Beijing and Washington. These remarks saw a sudden 2% rise in the S&P 500. So as we've seen the March markets fluctuate, within the past 3 or so weeks. This all comes down to one man and the actions surrounding him of how the markets are working. Now, I just want to give you a brief timeline of this tit-for-tat trade warfare between the two world's largest economies. Obviously, April the 2nd, Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, where he announced reciprocal tariffs on the world countries spanning from Australia to the Canadian. This came with a 10% baseline tariff, which started on April the 4th, 2 days later. China then responded with a 34% reciprocal tariff, which is what China originally had put on it. Donald Trump then on April the 7th imposed 50% tariffs on Chinese goods. Then China responded with an 84% tariff on US goods coming into China, and then the US then increased to this final amount of 125%. And then it stayed at an 84% on US goods into China at 84% and a 125% tariff on Chinese goods into the US. But this shows, these comments from Donald Trump and from his economic advisors shows a possible de-escalation in this trade war, and that trade negotiations seem to be going well.
Thomas Porteous, thank you ever so much for joining us and providing that insight. Where there is hope and optimism, we will wait to see how the markets react.